So let's understand what drives school refusal behaviour. What is bubbling away underneath? So let's understand what could potentially be contributing to the school refusal behaviour. And please keep in mind that this is just a list of possibilities, and it's really important that you think through what's happening for your child, what's happening for your family circumstance, what's happening at school. Okay, so number one, anxiety. Anxiety is a huge contributing factor to school refusal behaviour. And this could be general anxiety, which is anxiety about lots of many different things. It might be that your child is anxious in social situations. And, schools are big places with lots of kids and lots of people. And so that might be very overwhelming for them. And if you have a child who is very perfectionistic, they like to get things right all the time, then maybe that anxiety about performance and tests and doing really, really well. And they want to do really well, but the anxiety about that becomes crippling for them, which feeds into them wanting to avoid going to school. It may be anxiety about being away from a loved one. So being away from their adults, their carers, the big people in their life that they feel safe and connected to. It may be that your child has a mental health challenge or a mental health diagnosis, and that could be anything. That could be depression. It could be related to experiencing trauma. It could be related to attachment difficulties where they find it hard to connect and be in relationships with other people. And so that definitely is a contributing factor to then the signs and symptoms of school refusal behaviour. In some families, it's the family dynamics that then creates the tension for the young person, and they're a barometer and thermometer for what's happening in family life. And so how that then is expressed is through anxiety and stress and things such as wanting to not go to school. And that might be because they're worried about someone at home and they want to be close to that adult or that parent or carer. Or it might be that there's lots of conflict that's going on at home. And because they're maybe preoccupied with that, they're feeling stressed about that, then the thought of having to go to school and learn and interact with others might just seem a bit too much for them. We also know that families go through lots of things in life, and that could be someone becoming very ill with an acute illness or a chronic illness. It might be that there's a loss in the family, and that could be including pets, people outside of the family, people within the family, and that can really shake anyone up. And so maybe there's a loss event that's happened, not that long ago, or a long time ago that the child's still trying to process, and that's contributing to school refusal behaviour. It might be that families have separated, and that's a huge adjustment period for everybody involved. And so again, the child is processing that, and then they are focused on that and their experience of that event, and it makes it hard to be able to concentrate and think about engaging in education. It might be that your child is having some conflict with friends. This is really common. So your child might not necessarily have a mental health diagnosis. There might not be anything going on in terms of significant family events, but they have a good group of friends and there's a major falling out. I see this often in my clinical practice. And if that is the case, we'll talk about problem solving and how to move through those types of things. It may be that your child has social skills difficulties, that they have difficulties with communication, building friendships, keeping friendships, and that might be making them feel very stressed, and then again makes it hard to go to school. It may be that there's bullying going on, and again this is something to check out and to confirm and then to seek support, and we'll talk about that. Sometimes it might be conflict with teachers. And this might actually be real conflict. Sometimes people don't get along. but it also might be perceived conflict. And so your child might have the idea that my teacher hates me, they don't like me, which might not actually be the case, but because that is the way they're viewing the situation, then of course they want to avoid being around that person they're perceiving does not like them. It may be helpful to think about your child's capabilities as well, because as they are going up in the school grades, things get harder. There's more pressures, there's more expectations. And so sometimes what underlies school refusal behaviour are things such as speech and language difficulties. Maybe your child is finding it hard to understand and comprehend and process information that's coming at them in the school environment, and or they might find it difficult to express themselves and get out what's happening up here out verbally or on paper through assessments, etc. If you think that is the case, then possibly look into a speech and language assessment. Also as well, child development milestones. How's their hearing? How's their sight? Ruling out some of those things that are pretty simple and easy to figure out quickly might really help to understand what's going on here. As I've mentioned before in the webinar, other factors might be transition points. Maybe your child struggles with transition and change. A lot of people do. And so if there's a new school or starting multiple schools, going from primary into high school, returning after holidays, then again, that might be something to think about in terms of building resilience and putting strategies in place if you know that your child experiences transitions as being tricky. Let's talk about teenagers just for a second. So teenagers have a whole bunch of things that are going on for them. And some of these changes that are happening may help to understand, not to rationalize, but understand some of the school refusal behavior that you might be seeing. So let's keep in mind that during the teenage years, there's a huge amount of physical change that's going on. So really, this is their greatest period of physical growth since birth. And with that brings lots of hormonal changes through puberty, which can also lead to increased emotional intensity, and also their sleep cycle changes. And so maybe some of the not wanting to go to school is that heightened emotional state related to being a teenager, but also their tiredness. I can't go to school today, I'm too tired, might be related to the teenage sleep cycle is totally different to children and adults. Also, teenagers have massive cognitive changes that happen for them. And this is structural changes, rewiring that's happening in the brain. So the thinking brain, the ability to think logically, think about cause and effect, consequences, that goes out the window somewhere between the ages of 11 and 18. And unfortunately, parents, that thinking part of the brain is under construction for 3 consecutive years, whenever it starts for your child. And so again, is that a part of what you're seeing when your child says, I'm not going to school? Another cognitive change is that the brain wants lots of unique and novel and stimulating experiences. And so your teenager may be doing more risk-taking. They might be wanting to, school is boring because their brain is actually seeking a big hit of dopamine, because that's what the brain's doing in the teenage years. It's growing and it's wanting excitement. And also socially, lots of things change. Relationships change. Even within your family with the teenager, there will definitely be a shift in your parent to child relationship when you're now moving into more of an adult to young adult relationship. So all of that is huge amounts of change going on. So just ask yourself this question, if you're watching this today because you have a teenager, could some of the child's school avoidance relate to adolescent development? All right, this really is a time to pause the webinar and reflect on this question. What might be contributing to your child not wanting to attend school? So think about your child themselves. Think about the family and the family dynamics and the family events that are happening. Think about their peers and their relationships. Think about the school context specifically, but then get really curious and just think even more broadly, is there anything going on either directly for my child or around my child that would help me to understand a building of tension that's being expressed through school refusal? It might be helpful for you to reflect on the past. Is there something from the past that's impacting the present? And of course, we think about the recent past and the current circumstances, but also we think about possible worries about the future or upcoming events. And again, that might be worries about the future that your child might have or they might express, but also is there worries about the future from the family, and the child is part of the family and they're picking up on that. So pause the video here and have a little think and reflection.